We are going to paint poinsettias on glass today. Just want to let you know that before you get started, make sure that you coat your container in rubbing alcohol. It can be hand sanitizer or regular alcohol for that matter. And we are going to start by just outlining our shape in white paint. I am taking red paint and going in and painting with a broader brush to coat those areas. This does two things. It allows us to be able to paint fairly smoothly, and it also allows us to variegate the colors. So I'm adding a little bit of orange to this, a little bit of yellow to highlight this flower and make it look like it is a little bit more shaded along the one edge and highlighted along the left-hand side. Once that is complete, then we can go in and start outlining where our leaves need to be. In this case, I'm using a bright green to outline leaves so that I can go ahead in with a darker green that is actually a mixture of the red that I have on the brush along with regular green. We do not want to make our green too bright in this case because poinsettia leaves are typically a lot darker, more of a forest green rather than a Kelly green. I'm using the exact same brush. I am painting them in, and they are very similar to the original petals that we did for the flower. And I am making sure that I fill in as much of that space as I can. You can leave a little bit of the edge of the outline showing. I'm also adding an extra leaf here because I thought that it really needed it in this case. I'm taking a smaller brush now and painting the center of my poinsettia with black. I'm going to allow it to blend in with a little bit of the color that's around it. So taking that same brush and using a little bit of black and green mixture while the paint is still wet, I'm going in and add shadows around my poinsettia flower and onto the green of my leaves. So as I'm working with this, I'm also going to go in and add some highlights. I tend to work a little bit all over the place here simply because I want to see what it's going to look like. So I am constantly going back and forth from doing shadows to highlights. I'm doing the highlights on the petals right now with a little bit of yellow. Instead of using white with my red, I tend to use the yellow to give it more of a bright orange look. It makes the image a little bit more realistic, a little bit more contrasting without making it very dull. I'm also taking that bright green and going back in and adding a little bit of highlight over top of my leaves so that I have both shadows and a little bit of texture in the leaves itself. Finally, I'm going to go in here and add a little bit more shading around where the center of my flower is so that that little bit of the center pops a little bit more, and adding a little bit more shading around the petals so that it gives it a little bit more dimension. And to top things off, I want to make it look a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to add a little bit of dots here and there with the white, again, to give a little bit more contrast. But I'm also going to use a little bit of white and red to make some dots along the side. And this is just simply to add a little bit of more texture to the design. I'm also going to be adding some little loops of ribbon within the in and around the flower itself, simply to create, again, a little bit more contrast, a little bit more interest. It kind of takes and ties all of the flower together. This is just to, again, add interest and texture to your image.